There are two polar opposite narratives emerging about what happened to the Ukrainian Airlines passenger plane. The evidence Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the American officials say they've seen indicates an Iranian surface-to-air missile shot down that plane. The intelligence, though, is not being made public. Iran says it's not true. So to help us understand what kind of intelligence might exist, I'm joined by Jessica Davis. She's the president of Insight Threat Intelligence, and she's a former senior strategic analyst with CSIS. She has extensive experience in the security and intelligence world. Jessica, help us understand the technology and the satellite imagery that exists that Canada and its allies are relying on.
Well, we don't know a lot about what actual intelligence the United States, Canada, and its allies are relying on in this case. We suspect that some of it may be imagery related, but it's actually possible that it could be signals intelligence, other kinds of technical intelligence, or even human intelligence at this point. And in fact, it's highly likely that there's a variety of different types of intelligence at play here in order to come to the assessment of how likely it is that the Iranians were responsible for this.
There is skepticism about the political motives of both the U.S. and Iran. They are sworn enemies. So based on your experience as an intelligence analyst, how confident are you that the intelligence Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke of can be trusted?
So when I first saw the news reporting that the United States had come to the assessment that it was highly likely that the Iranians were responsible for downing the airplane, I was initially a little bit skeptical because there is a history of politicization of intelligence in the United States. It's possible that political actors in the U.S. can use or misuse intelligence for their political ends. So when the Prime Minister came out and said that there was Canadian intelligence and other allied intelligence that corroborated the United States assessment, that gave me a lot more confidence in terms of the validity of this assessment.
Can you explain why?
Why politicization or why?
No, why you had a lot more confidence.
Right, because there is a history of the United States coming up with assessments, particularly around Iraqi weapons of mass destruction, for instance, that really served political ends, but wasn't necessarily justified by the intelligence that they had on hand, or the intelligence turned out to be false at the end of the day, and they weren't corroborating it properly. So in this kind of situation, when you really want to have a high degree of confidence, having our own domestic intelligence playing part of that assessment is really important. We know and control and understand all of the sources of that intelligence much more than we'll ever understand American intelligence.
And Jessica, why not make, maybe not all of it public, but at least some of it public, so that there's a level of confidence that what the Canadians and Americans say is true?
So I actually think that it's possible that at some point in time we're going to see some of this intelligence come out. Right now, a lot of the intelligence is probably at a very highly classified level, just given the speed at which it's coming out. One of the big differences between really highly classified intelligence and open source information is really the speed at which you can get it. So classified tends to be much faster, but in the long run, and even over the course of a few days, we may see more and more of the underlying information that forms this assessment, part of the assessment or the intelligence, come to light. Now, Canada is not going to be in a position to share American or allied intelligence. The Americans have a bit of a history of sharing intelligence that's a bit more robust than ours, so I wouldn't be surprised to see American intelligence making its way into the news media. But we also have the opportunity to get intelligence and information from open source investigators like Bellingcat. So for anybody who's familiar with it, they've done an incredible investigation of the MH17 crash, pulling information from social media, photographs that had been posted, corroborating it, and using information that was coming out of the Dutch investigation, and pulling it all together to really give the public a very strong picture of who was ultimately responsible for that crash.
Jessica Davis, thanks.
Thank you for having me.